Good afternoon, Jan.
Hi, Michael. You're back in
Yes.
at home.
Yes, yes. Back from a wonderful trip to Toronto.
Yeah, I saw your recording from last week. It was
Excellent.
still exciting.
Hmm. Yep,
No,
yep.
I suppose everything went well.
Yes, it did. Yes. Yeah. In fact,
Okay,
yeah. Jason Taylor, who runs Code Launch, he commented that it was flawless, which
okay.
you rarely hear that
Hmm.
that word. So, yeah, yeah. I was sitting at the so in the venue from where we had code lunch. There's a balcony section on the top. And you can overlook the stage, and then there's the floor section. So I was actually sitting up in the balcony. So I had a nice view of like the backstage area, just off to the side of the stage where people are getting ready. Yeah, so I could see the computers open and running the show and the lights and the sound, and I was like, do I see Launch Kings on any of those screens? Because somebody's pushing the button in order to advance the state, and I was hoping to be able to see that happen. Um, but yeah, and then I also had my laptop open, so I got on on the Wi-Fi, and then I logged into the Linode server, and I tailed the logs, and I had them going. So it was just kind of tick 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 as the admin app checks in every once in a while, and then they start the show, and they put a QR code up on the screen and say, "This QR code get you more information about Code Launch." Oh, okay, that's not the right one. They put up another QR code. Yeah, and this one will get you information about our startups tonight. Oh, okay. Um, Now this is the most important QR code of the evening. Boom! Up comes the Launch Kings QR code, and I look over, and then the logs just boom. Everybody scanning the code and entering their
Hmm.
information, logging in.
And
Yeah,
how many participants did you have then? People using
yeah.
the application?
We had about 250, 225 around that range that actually
Okay,
used it. Yep.
they were all using it simultaneously,
Yes.
and so the pushing was no problem anymore.
That's right. Yeah. So I isolated the race condition that was causing the initial problem,
Hmm.
and um, yeah, so uh, I put in some hacks in order to make sure that that was no longer a problem
Hmm.
for the Canada event. But yeah, I am looking forward to fixing those issues in the core library and then taking those hacks out um,
Hmm.
and getting
Because if
to.
I understood well, the problem is that the distribution rules get set up before all the information is sent to the replicator,
Yep.
and so the distribution is forbidden
Mm-hmm.
based on no information. And so what you want to do is don't send forbidden, no authorization, but just you don't have information yet,
Mm-hmm.
and update the distribution rule permanently.
Yep. Exactly.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes. Precisely.
Okay.
Yeah. So that basically that
Yeah.
and this is an idea that it's kind of been central to the design of Jinaga this whole time. I don't know why I didn't apply it here, but there's a core there's a fundamental separation between the information that the application is exchanging and the connection. Um,
Mm.
so you connect, you open up a pipeline, and now you can send information. So uh, authorization is really part of that information. It's built into the model. That's one of the core tenets. And so I don't know why I stuck with the HTTP way of having authorization be part of the connection, because you make the connection, the request, and then you get back an error on the connection. And say, no, keep the pipe open. That's
Mm.
data. Just give me the data, and then later you can give me different data.
And it shouldn't matter in what timing or sequence the information arrives.
Yeah. 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 That's really the whole goal is don't have to think about events anymore. Don't have to think about you know triggering causes that then if it's in this state, move to that state and take this side effect, and don't want to think about that anymore. So let's make it so that you don't have to.
Already have enough problems. Don't want to think about that anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what have you been up to these past couple of weeks?
Not much. Not much. More problems than other things. Let me show you. Wait. Make the window a little bit smaller. The easiest thing is the code formatting. To format the complete document, it's Control K, Control D.
Mm-hmm.
And to format just the selection is Control K, Control F.
Ah, okay.
And last week
Yeah.
I said something else. I think I said Shift Alt or something, or Control C, Control F. But I heard somewhere a beep.
Yeah, I just started. I just started Zoom.
Okay.
That might have been what.
Because I saw on the general channel there was somebody who was working or making another client in Jinaga.
Yes, that was Cabbage, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
So guest of the show. Yeah, he is working on a Rust implementation.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, exciting to see a Rust parser come online. So that's going to be kind of the foundation. So I think he's actually planning on doing both the client and the server. So they both require understanding of the factual specification language. But the server definitely requires that all of the client requests are in the form of factual specifications. But the client uses it for something. I'm not don't quite remember, but originally you might remember I created that specification language just for debugging. So I was writing unit tests, and now wanted to see what the test thought the specification was. So wrote some LINQ or wrote some TypeScript, and it's like, what did it actually come up with? What's that data structure? So let's output it like this. Oh, wait a minute, that's useful. That's going to be the where protocol.
Yeah. Let me share this. Why is it this one? Share. Yeah, it should be visible now.
Yes.
So one of the problems we had was that the client name, the yard name, appeared in the screen, but not the address, the number, postal code. And that was where is it? Unselected. But I find it a little bit a strange thing, so I'm not sure. So here, in this unselected, we only had yard name.
Okay.
We didn't have street, country, and so on.
Yeah.
But my feeling is this unselected change there, is that the way it works in MVVM?
That is...
because it makes me think about identification.
MVVM is so there's the pure MVVM where the view model knows absolutely nothing about the view, and the view model is able to react to everything it needs to. And so in pure MVVM, the view model should be able to update those properties without the view getting involved. The view is just basically data bound to the selected yard, and then the view model says, "Okay, I got this. Whenever that changes, I'm going to update these because I'm going to show those values." But MVVM, often you can't just be pure about it. There are often these little rough edges, and I think you ran into one of them here. So yeah, the solution is, okay, let the view be involved. So the view is responding to an event. So unselected yard changed. Wait a minute. No, you know what? Um, I I wasn't looking at where we are. So we are in the view model. So this is the new task view
Yeah.
model. Yes. Okay, so I should have paid closer attention to that word partial right there. Um, so
Because
yeah,
this is an automatic generated method by MVVM.
yes. So
Wait,
yeah,
where was it?
we are being pure. We are still in complete view model land. The view is not involved in this logic at all. It's just whenever
Where?
somebody sets the selected yard, the view model itself responds by um, updating, replacing these properties.
Where was that thing? Oh, it was not here. The view models are here, so it
Mm-hmm.
should be here.
Um,
It's one of these. Yard, new task, task
yeah,
overview. This one, I guess.
there it is.
And
Yeah,
here we have somewhere an unselected unselected yard changed here.
yep. So yeah, here it
So,
declares that as a partial method with no body to it, no
mhm.
implementation. So that means you can implement it in your half of the partial class. But by declaring it here, it's able to then call the unselected yard changed. So you'll see a property declared in this file as well called selected yard, and that's going to have a whole bunch of calls to things before. It's going to change a field, and it's going to have a whole bunch of calls to things after.
Yeah, yeah, I saw it somewhere. I don't remember, but
Yeah.
like for example here, number you have changing, and then here
Yep.
changed. But it also, to get this working, I also had to add these values. So I added, because for the moment what we had was client name and yard name. So I added these observable properties.
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, we are repeating here the yard view model. Where is that one? The yard view model. Yeah, so this is our
Yeah.
yard view model
Mm-hmm.
with almost exactly the same properties.
Yeah. Okay, and I think this comes down to which of the two are you data binding to the controls, and which of the two are you updating. I
Well,
believe, if I remember
this
correctly.
one I'm data binding. That's to generate the list,
Mm-hmm, the list, yeah,
and that's the one I'm updating.
yeah,
So
and
actually, the data binding, data binding of the individual controls go to here,
yes,
and the data binding of the list goes to the yard view model.
yeah, yeah. So this is really a degrees of freedom demonstration. Um, so uh, you've got a copy of these properties in another place, which means that you have an extra degree of freedom for each of these properties. Um, so,
Mm.
in fact, you've got 1 degree of freedom per property per task that's in the list, and then just one additional degree of freedom per property in um, the new task. I'm sorry, I said task the first time. It's Okay, a degree of freedom per yard in the list, and then one additional degree of freedom in the new task view model for each one of these properties. And so when the user edits a property, they change, like for example, the street. When they edit the street, they change the new task view model. They change that 1 degree of freedom. They don't change anything in the list.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
But
So,
we could not make another instance of that yard view model.
no, that would, yeah. I see how that would reduce the code duplication, but that's not, in my opinion, that's not bad code duplication. Um, that duplication represents a real difference, not just an accidental difference. So the user can edit this street property. The user cannot edit the street property that's in the yard view model.
Okay. So have to leave it this way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
I
if
was thinking,
yeah, that leaves the door open for possibilities because this is deliberately a different set of properties. You can have some kind of transformation, like for example, if you've got if you've got some code that selects the city from the postal code, that kind of logic, then you would put that kind of business logic into the new task view model, because there that represents interaction with the user. You want to to perform that lookup and help them out while they're editing. But you don't want to put that in the yard view model because the yard view model represents the actual data as it's stored. So even if they have an incorrect postal code and city combination in the yard view model, that's the way it was stored. You have to keep it that way. And postal codes change all the time, so maybe it's just an old combination. But yeah, that way you get to choose which side you put that kind of logic on.
okay, so I did it the right way.
Yep.
Anyway, by doing it this way, all these fields are updated. So that was a good thing. Then I started on saving the yard address in the end here. So, and then I got completely put everything back in question.
Mm-hmm.
Where is my window? So I have my view models here. I have my windows here. New task dialog. How to start with this? Initially, we were just gonna see if there is a selected yard, yes or no, and if the selected yard was null, means I didn't select anything. I just entered the data. I saved all the data into new facts.
Mm-hmm.
So I continued that way, and then realized that I also needed a client.
Yes.
Which you see here.
Yeah.
Because before a client was part of the yard, but now a client is an independent entity which depends directly on the user. So what I did was in my view model, yard view model, I added a client property. I added it in the constructor, adapted the factory methods. Yeah, so now in the factory you have to add a client as well.
Yeah.
The question is whether I should keep that name, yard view model, because it contains a client and a yard.
Yeah, that's true.
And so this allows me to check for the yard and to check for the client, whether there was already a client.
Right.
Because I could have a yard with no client, I could have a client with no yard, all the combinations.
Mm-hmm.
But that brought me to a UI problem. And there we are again in the UI. Because we discussed about the change request design pattern.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's about a change. So for me, my UI doesn't tell the user, is it a change or is it a new entity?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And if it's ambiguous to the to the user, it's also ambiguous to the application.
Yeah, because we might have, for example, an approved or rejected fact afterwards. And so the dispatcher will get a request to change that client, but perhaps it's a completely new client. So
Okay.
what is the in the old application it was no problem because I never went that far. I just you could select from the database existing clients, existing yards, but he always made a new copy, a full new copy. So there was a difference between the lookup table and the selected data.
Right.
While now we are working with the lookup table to which we add customers and yards, or to which we update, we make a change request.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all happening in one dialog box, so it's really not not clear what the intent was.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and this is not a Jinaga problem. This is a UI problem.
Yeah. So I think one way that I would like to kind of explore, see if this is going to work, is to make those specific tasks explicit. Well, I'll try not to use the word task because this is the new task dialog. So what we're trying to do here, the goal of this is to create a new task. And so that task has to be the part of a client and part of a yard. So first of all, confirm that that's true, that that you can't have a task without a client and you can't have a task without a yard.
Without a client, no, because that's the one who pays.
Yeah.
But you can have a task with multiple yards.
Oh, with multiple yards. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
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 That's a nice.
One,
yeah, that's a good wrinkle that this dialogue does not even address.
yeah. But
Yeah.
in the model, we updated the model to foresee that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think I think that alone means that that we need to rethink how the interaction works. Okay. So if we were to to separate those and so now in order to create a task, you need to select or create a client. So that's a prerequisite. You thinking in terms of the facts themselves. So that's a predecessor. And then you also have to select or create one or more yards. And so
actually, here next to this to the combo box, next to it you put a plus, a button. Click on that one, and it will open a new client window where you can add a new client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And perhaps you can add a second button with a pencil where you can modify an existing client after selection.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense, and that clearly indicates to the user what they're trying to do. It still allows them to stay focused. You know, what they wanted to do in the first place was to create a new task. They shouldn't have to push that to a stack, go create a client first somewhere else, and then come back to it.
Mm.
So yeah, this keeps them in focus. Um, and then yeah, then that also means that they're done with the create or modify a client portion of what they're trying to accomplish, and um, then they return to this dialog and the client is selected. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. That works. And then with the yard, it would be the same metaphor, but now instead of a single selection dropdown, it would be a list. And so you have your plus and pencil icons at the buttons at the bottom of that list.
And because you can add multiple yards, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. And then you can do
Yeah.
a multi-select on that list and say, oh, the yard that I want isn't in here yet. Oh, let me hit this plus button, fill that in.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm back. There it is. And it's already selected for me. And so I multi-select the
Mm-hmm.
rest of them and I go.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that will be a data grid with one line per yard,
Mm-hmm.
or one area with multiple lines. The format doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so per yard there will be a modification button, and at the end there will be an add. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I think that clears it up for the user and for the
Mm-hmm.
application. It's pretty unambiguous now what you're trying to accomplish. And then getting back to what you were just saying about the change request pattern, those changes to the client or to the yard, or even the creation of new clients and new yards, those would be captured as change requests that then need to be approved.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, the user can still use those because they're the ones who made the change request.
Mm-hmm. I went back to that episode. It was end of May, about that change request pattern,
Uh-huh.
and I was wondering why we put it in a separate. So, for example, the article or the author.
Mm-hmm.
What was it? An author? Yeah.
Yeah, this was
Anyway,
points of
the
interest that
thing
we
we
were
want
talking
to
about earlier.
change, we don't just use the same object. We use the change request object, where we add an
Mm-hmm.
approve with a pointer to a new object that was created by dispatcher.
Yes.
So, for example, in this case, if we want to change the client name or the yard address, for example, the
Mm-hmm.
street, then we would add the
Mm-hmm.
new yard address request for yard address change, and that one can be rejected, can be approved, and if it is approved, it will point back to a new yard address record that the dispatcher will have to create, or will be
Yeah.
created by pressing the approved. But why that separate record?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I can see that causing a problem here because the task needs to refer back to the client and the yard, but if they don't exist
mm,
yet, then how could it do so? Um, yeah, the reason for that being a separate record, you know, um, in kind of the pattern that we negotiated was that it made the distribution rules and the authorization rules simpler. Um,
and you
yeah,
wanted to avoid an overflow of requests
yeah,
that everybody asks for change requests, unauthorized users,
mm-hmm,
and so your queries become much complicated. But in
yeah,
this case, every user that will be in the system will be authenticated.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. So,
So the
yeah,
one who abuses the system will be fired. It's not my decision.
uh-huh.
But
Yeah, yeah. Those the workers don't work for you.
mm,
um,
No, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an anonymous guy on the internet who's
Yeah.
gonna generate facts, or even automate the generation of facts until the whole system blows up.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah. So I think in this situation, this is a good example of conditions under which you would choose the other version of the pattern, where you actually do
mm,
create a client fact and a yard fact, um, client name, yard name, all of the mutable properties, and then you've got yeah, authorize or approval.
Approved or rejected.
Yeah, yeah, approved, rejected
Yeah.
for those, um, and then yeah, so that means that uh, the the list would be populated by a union of two specifications. One would be show me all of the, the we'll say, look at the clients list for to start with. Show me all of the clients that have been approved, and then their names that have been approved. And so you've got uh, that master list, and then you run another one, and you say you give me all of the clients and the names that have not yet been either approved or rejected, um, but that
Mhm.
I myself have created, and then you
Yeah.
union those two together, and now that's your full list.
Hmm.
So yeah, when something is rejected, then it's removed from the list of the person who
Hmm.
made that suggestion. Um, but yeah, in the meantime, they can see it, and then they can select it and add that client and that yard to the
And
task.
the same specification, but with without that person has generated it,
Mm-hmm.
will be used by the dispatcher to see all the items that
Yep.
he has to consider to approve or to reject.
Yes.
Um, so the specifications will be used multiple times.
Yep.
Okay. Mhm.
Yep. I
But
think
anyway,
that'll do it.
I think we can reuse, for example, the combo box for the name,
Mm-hmm.
where you see all the yard information that we can perfectly reuse. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that combo box there at the top,
Yeah.
the client
Hmm.
name combo box, uh, since that's going to have all of the yards in it, um,
Hmm.
maybe it makes sense for that one to just be pared down, and that's just the client names, so you don't have multiple rows per client, and then there's the list of yards, and that's the one where you reuse, um, and you've got uh, all of the yard information. But then yeah, there's also a connection between the two. So you only want the yards that are associated with those with the selected client. So I think you've
So
got an additional filter on the yard list.
um, perhaps make um, like here the yard name, make it a combo box too. And if you first select the client, then you only see all the yards that are assigned to that client.
Mm-hmm.
If you do the opposite, you start with a yard, he will automatically give the client that is attached to it.
Well, now in the model, there could be more than one client attached to the yard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm complicating things again.
Yeah, but if these are degrees of freedom that are in the problem, then they do need to be in the solution.
Mm.
So if it's something that you need to represent, then yeah, you need first of all to represent it in the model, and then secondly present that to the user in a
Mm.
way that's unambiguous when they express their intent.
I always like things which are flexible, but it needs to stay clear for everybody
Mm-hmm.
and unambiguous. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's think about it.
Yeah.
Tonight in my bed, I will think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you
Oh,
don't want to take away the flexibility,
mm,
but yet most of the time it's a simple hierarchy. It's only
yeah,
occasionally that things are that violate the hierarchy.
because in general they will just select the client and with it a
Mm-hmm.
yard, and that's it.
Yeah.
Because that's the nice thing about the data grid that's behind this combo box.
Mm-hmm.
That they have immediately a complete overview.
Yeah. Yeah. That is nice. Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. This is why there are people who specialize in user experience, because these are not easy problems.
Unfortunately, I'm looking for them, but I don't see them here. Yeah. But even because that's these type of problems, it's something I've been struggling with for the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I even searched for at a certain moment for patterns, which I never really found uh,
Yeah.
on user interface. Um,
Hmm.
and if you look to existing applications, there are a few who come with very nice ways, but most of them, it's not what I'm looking for. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Something's quince. Yeah. That's it. Um. Yeah. This is probably not entirely uh, entirely what you're looking for, but um, if I share screen 2, there we go. Um, this is a user interface pattern library.
Perhaps you can share it.
I think I'm sharing on
Yeah,
Zoom. Yeah.
yeah, I see it.
Yeah. So I remember coming across this many years back, and it looks like it hasn't really been updated in, well, it's, well,
Mm,
2024. Um, yeah, so there have been some updates, but yeah, 2014, 2013. Yeah, so the content was last touched in 2014, but yeah, it's still going back quite a way. Um,
mm,
so yeah, I was excited about this when I first saw it because I thought that uh, this could this was going to be kind of the collection of
reference.
user experience
Mm,
patterns, um, and yeah, I think basically this is turned into just a blog, and maybe the pattern explorer itself is no longer. But yeah, at the time that I first started looking at it, it was um, primarily focused on user interface,
mm,
with a little bit of user experience. Um, so user experience is all about I have this goal, then I'm going to make these user interface decisions and these information architecture decisions to organize the user's conceptual model of the data, um, and
mm,
then present these interactions in order to support that model. But but yeah, as you can see, uh, yeah, the the shining example here is really user interface. We've got a light shining from above, and we've got shadows and
mm.
reflections, and it's like, well, that's not user experience. That's user interface. So yeah, I was hopeful that this would have some of those goal directed, because I've got this goal. Um, I've got this problem. I want this solution. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe in one of these blog posts there's something about that. Yeah, just don't make it annoying. There we go. That's good advice. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was hopeful. Yeah, you mentioned looking for um, looking for some kind of a um, a set of patterns of I've got this goal of I've got an almost hierarchy, and I want to show the relationship between these two sides. Um,
I will have a look at that, see whether anything we can use anything about it of
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. And actually, today I might run into David Belcher, the head of UX in the Dallas office. Um, he helped me to design the Launch Kings application. So, all of
Okay.
that design is the collaboration of primarily him and Jason, figuring out how do we make this just obvious to somebody holding a phone in a dark theater that this is what you do, and I think they nailed it. So yeah, I can present the problem to him and see what ideas he's got.
Yeah. Because the idea with the voting codes was very clever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fact that you didn't have to finish it to have a valid vote.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. In fact, when we did the test run with improvers, there's no submit button. That's right. That's by design. You just push the button and put your phone down.
Well, perhaps he has a much better idea. Probably.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Good. I think that was it. ERT addresses. Nothing more than that.
Okay. Well, let's see. So I can kind of talk about where I'm heading next on the library. So I don't yet have work down this path, but so if I go to Jinaga.js, I do have issues. That's issues. So yeah, these are the issues that that I started to record based on the race conditions that I talked about last week. So the one that we were just talking about here is the 403. So this was kind of nice. I was able to kind of explain the issues in a single OpenAI ChatGPT session, and then asked it to write GitHub issues for it, and captured everything pretty well. But the idea here is that I want to start using the Jinaga graph protocol even more in even more situations, and so and then in the process expand the Jinaga graph protocol. So right now with the protocol, you've got message frames that come back so that you can stream them, and the message frames will contain either a fact complete with all of its fields and references to its predecessors, or a public key. That way the fact can also contain the signatures, and so it'll refer back to the public key that was used to sign it. So So this is an idea of adding to the Jinaga graph protocol a another frame that represents an error, and it's really more of a developer advice. The error is not intended to be displayed on the user interface or to kill the connection. Um, so the problem that I was trying to solve here is that the 403 is giving me useful information as a developer. So I'm building out my application, I'm adding a feature, write a specification. Okay, let's run it, and it doesn't work. Well, the 403 comes back and it says, oh, there's no distribution rule, and here's the full specification. And I can even because the LLMs have the examples right here in the source code, I can actually copy that specification in and say, hey, there's no distribution rule for this specification. It says, gotcha. Let me add that distribution rule, and it usually gets it exactly right. And I say, all right, thanks. Build the distribution rules, deploy. Hey, it works. So, so I still want the information that comes back from the 403, but I don't want it to be at the connection level. I just want that to be one data frame within the stream.
Mm.
So, so yeah, this is all about adding that that no rule or rule not satisfied data frame with the information, and then I can even build that into developer tools within the browser. So you could use the network tab, look at the response coming back, and see the error. But wouldn't it be cool if I had a browser plugin, similar to the React developer tools? So you just a Chrome extension that you install that can now see these things happening and give you a better developer experience. So maybe, I don't know. that part's not necessary. But that is one of those changes I'm going to be making. And then different variants of the same kind of race condition also happen. So when you compute an inverse, so even you can even just do this locally. So you start up an in-memory data store. In-memory data store still demonstrates this, and you create a fact record and then use that as a given, but you didn't actually call Jinaga client.fact. So you didn't send that fact record to the Jinaga store, even locally. And then you start a specification from that starting point. The local client will basically return an empty result from that. So it'll start a subscription. So this is specifically Jinaga client.watch. So so you've called watch and you have not yet called Jinaga client.fact, and then you call Jinaga client.fact after, and the Jinaga client.watch does not give you back that result. And that's because it didn't have that starting point, and so when it set up the inverse is only looking for successors to that starting point. Now the starting point itself shows up, the successor still doesn't exist, and there's no connection to it. One place where this is this is really clear is if the starting point, the first thing that you do is go up to a predecessor, and then you come down to successors from there. So so yeah, you've got you're looking at a task, and you want to see all the information about the task. So that includes the yard name. So okay, let's do a Jinaga client.watch from this task, go up to the yard, and then come back down to the yard name, and then we can display that. But I haven't yet called Jinaga client.fact and on that task. And so when I set up the specification, the task doesn't exist, so it can't see what yard it is supposed to be a part of. And then it sets up the inverse so that if the yard name changes, then you get a callback to Jinaga client.watch. But when you learn about the task, I also want the callback to Jinaga client.watch for now I know this yard, and so I can find the yard names. So I want to just run the whole specification when I learn about the starting point. So yeah, this affects subscriptions on the wire protocol, but also local. So yeah, I really need to augment the inverse function so that everybody can see that once you learn about the given, that triggers the inverse as well. So that's going to be a fun one. Let's see, reevaluate feed when distribution rule becomes satisfied. Let's see. Oh, yes. So this is another variant of the same issue. So yeah, the primary issue here is that you can't set up the specification because it immediately returns an error on that connection, and so now that connection is closed. But now that you've not returned that as an error and closed the connection, this is the change that now when I actually do satisfy that distribution rule, I need to run the specification, because the whole point was that distribution rule says you cannot run the specification. So when it establishes the connection, it has to be a connection that has returned no data. And now I learned that, oh, you're actually authorized, so now this whole specification that you asked for, here's all the results, full. And this is different from the inverse change, because the fact that makes the distribution rule true, that authorizes you to run the specification, might not be in the specification itself. In fact, it probably isn't. So yeah, so this one is just saying, okay, once you have the information to run the specification, go ahead and start it. But this one is, once I learned that you've been authorized to read from this particular tenant, now your tenant query isn't looking for your authorization. It's just looking for all the information. So yeah, once that becomes true, then run this.
That's a solution for that bug.
Yep.
Flat race condition.
Yep. Yep. And then kind of along the way, looking for these issues. I was thinking that WebSockets was the solution to the problems I was facing. So right now, the Jinaga protocol uses a variant of server-sent events. So server-sent events are it's an accepted protocol for using HTTP in kind of a long polling format. So you make the connection, and then the server keeps the connection alive until it's got an event, and then it sends it back to the client. It's not using actual server-sent events because the server-sent events protocol has a specific content type, and data frames within your stream have to look a certain way. And for the Jinaga graph protocol, I wanted the Jinaga graph protocol with a specific version number to be the content type, so I could use that for content negotiation and versioning. And then the data frames, I wanted those to look a little bit different. So I didn't want to be constrained by the server sent events format and protocol, but I did want to use that same style. So that long polling style. So yeah, when I was first experiencing these issues, I thought that it was because of long polling and I needed to switch to WebSockets. And I was like, that's good. I don't think I can develop a WebSockets implementation in time for the event. So that was kind of risky. But then as I was digging into it, I was like, no, there's deeper problems. It's not the long polling or the SSE that's causing the problem. Nevertheless, there are significant advantages to WebSockets. The biggest one being that you open the connection and the client can continue to send information down that open connection. With long polling or server sent events, the client sends one request, and then the connection is only there for the server to respond. The client can't say anything more. So with WebSockets, I can actually create one connection to the replicator and then funnel all of the feeds through that one connection. So yeah, I'll set up lots of subscriptions with just one connection. So still a necessary and important thing to do. And then I also thought that there might be some issues in one bit of code that I was seeing in the transient fork. Was it transient fork? Yeah, I think that's the one that I first saw. And the problem is that it so transient fork in the TypeScript library is paired with the persistent fork, which I don't think showed up here. But yeah, the idea is that if you're using a persistent data store, then you need to interact with the data store and the connection to the replicator in one pattern. But if you've got a transient data store, like in-memory data store, then you need a different pattern of usage in order to guarantee that information is not lost. So with the persistent data store, you get things to the local data store, you report back to the user that you're done, and then you trigger off a queue. Or if you are fetching data, you will fetch it locally, return that to the user, and then fetch from remote. But with persistent, when you're saving data, you have to save it remotely before you report back to the user. You might save it in memory, but then not be able to connect to the replicator. Meanwhile, the application has moved on, and the user thinks that the data is saved, and it really hasn't. So there was a gap between loading information from the local data store and then making that subscription to the replicator. And so if new information came in locally, then there might be there was a narrow window in which that information would not be included in the in that watch, in that subscription. And so I was like, I think so. I didn't have enough time to truly dig into this to see if this was actually happening. But it did add a little bit of logging on the replicator that that would detect if something like this happened. And then I was able to scan the logs to see, did it actually happen during the event? And no, it didn't. but I was like, yeah, I really want to take the time to analyze this. So this is the output from kind of explaining to the model what I think was happening, and then saying, look for this in other places in the code. And so, yeah, it came back with a list of things to look at. So this is going to be a real sit down, reason through kind of head scratch issue. And then this one right here. Oh, I haven't haven't generated a description for this one yet, but this one surprised me. So I use the Jinaga client.hash function in order to compute the hash of a fact, and then use that as the ID of the fact. And you can put that into the specification, and then it will return the hash as part of the projection. Or at least it does that in C#. It doesn't work in TypeScript. I was like, oh, I thought I implemented that in TypeScript. No, I didn't. So, need to get that working. So in the meantime, right now the application is using properties of the facts themselves in order to to generate IDs. Like the public key of the user. So yeah, in React, you have to have a key for every element that you put as part of a list. So if you've got a loop and it creates a bunch of elements, they have to have a key. And so this generates those keys for you, but among other useful things. But it wasn't working. I was just getting these warnings from React saying, hey, all these keys are the same. They're all the empty string. How did that happen?
That's not the purpose.
Yeah. So quite a bit of work to do there. And that's going to be taking up part of my time over the next few weeks to get that nailed down. But in the meantime, I'm also putting together an Improving You course where I'm teaching people how to build a game using Jinaga. And the idea...
Back to the origins.
Exactly, yeah. Hey, we're back to the peer-to-peer game engine. So, I'm going to basically take the architecture of Launch Kings and strip out the Launch Kings specific stuff, but the generic architecture is pretty solid. So I'll package that up. That will be an example architecture that anybody can use to build any kind of application. But then I'll use that with this Improving You to say we're going to build a multiplayer game, and then hopefully by the end of the Improving You class, which I think is going to be something like 4 or 5 sessions, it's going to be pretty long class. By the end, the learners should be able to publish their games for other people to play, and it'll be fun.
Will become a game studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes people happy.
Who knows? I still found something completely different. Some funny physics last week.
Oh.
You still have 2 minutes for it?
Yeah. Let's do that. Yeah.
Wait. Let's see. The whiteboard. I take a whiteboard on Zoom. Shift. Where are the tools? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's have the following. That's the ceiling. So on that ceiling, I have a spring attached. Then I have a rigid cord. There I have a second spring attached. And so here I have a load. Yeah. You know that one?
I have seen this one recently, yes. Yeah. And it is pretty amazing.
So from here there is a cord which is just not tight.
Mm-hmm.
It goes there. And there is another one from here to there.
Yeah.
Oh. And now, so this one, wait, how do I change colors in this thing? Probably here. So the red one, that's a rigid cord which is tightened.
Uh-huh.
And so the green ones, I've drawn them with a lot too long, but let's say they are just a little bit too long, but they are not tight.
Yeah.
And the question is, what happens if we cut this one? What's happening with this load? And
Yeah.
but you saw it.
I did. Yeah, I did see it. So, yeah, if anybody hasn't seen it and watches this first, stop, go see Veritasium is where
It was
I saw it.
that one.
Yeah.
Because actually it's very simple. It's the two springs parallel or the two springs in series,
Mm-hmm.
and it's pure physics. But I was amazed when they told me it goes up. I said, no, it's not possible.
Yeah.
It's so counter.
Yeah. It's gonna relax. It's gonna go down. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's just it's because of the springs, the length of the spring is, or the length that the spring extends from its resting state is proportional to the load on the spring. So.
Well, if
Yeah.
you take the first state is just two springs in series, the first one, the second one, and if you cut the wires, then you get a spring with a rigid cord, and you get a rigid cord with a spring, which is actually the same as two springs in parallel.
Yeah.
So in the first case, you have a load, and every spring has the same load. So
Yeah.
the formula constant times x applies. And here you have half
Yeah.
a load per spring. So the extension will be just half in that case. While here each spring will have an extension of x. So automatically in the second case, the extension will be much smaller than in the first case.
Yeah.
So hop, it goes up.
Yep. Yeah. This wasn't mentioned in the Veritasium video, but I do remember another.
I think I saw it. I saw it there.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the thing that I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. There's an X here and an X over 2 there. But I remember another video that was talking about an engineering failure on a bridge. And they didn't mention this other video in the Veritasium video, but I think it's down to the same principle. So they had a kind of a walkway above a like a concert area. So people could walk across this walkway, look down and see the crowd below, and so it was made from 2 different sections that kind of met at a 90-degree angle. And there was a little bit of a step between them, if I remember correctly. So so they were 2 different parts of the bridge on different levels, and the original design called for each one to be independently affixed to the ceiling. And so that led to 2 columns that were really close to each other, one holding up the upper bridge and one holding up the lower bridge. And then the contractors that built the bridge, they changed the design, probably for aesthetics, so that instead of these 2 columns, they just they had the lower one attached to the upper one. So for for the longest time, people were walking across this bridge, everything was fine. But then when they had a large event, and then there were a lot of people standing on the bridge for a long period of time, the fact that you had all of the load. This was now the series version, so both of these sections are taking the full load of the all the people on the bridge versus the parallel, where each one was just taking this one was taking just those people's load, that one was taking just those people's load, so you're each taking half. And so there was a catastrophic failure of that joint.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that not a happy story. This one, a weight moves up. It's kind of happy. But
Yeah.
I think it's the same principle at work.
Mm. No, in the same episode, they also had a mechanical thing which they built, which works a little bit on the same principle. But so you pull, and normally when you pull
Yes.
something, it extends, and there it started pulling back.
Uh-huh.
So when you pull with the same force, it will react and pull back. It was a quite
Yeah.
clever thing, and they wanted to utilize that to change the frequency of resonance,
Yeah.
because something got into resonance, and so it like a bridge, and it goes quicker and quicker, and at a certain moment it will trigger to the other state, and so the resonance frequency will change, and so automatically it will stop vibrating.
Yeah.
A lot of clever things there, but physics is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. What's that kind of damper that they put at the top of buildings? There are two words that go in front of the word damper. But yeah, it's just using physics, so that it's this huge weight at the top of a building, and it's suspended in such a way that that it will absorb the motion of the building, and it kind of counteracts.
It's not a flywheel.
Um, yeah, not does it have a flywheel? Maybe. Yeah, I think there are two different designs. One that does have a flywheel, but the one that I'm thinking of is just just a solid weight. But yeah, I think this was part of the story of the Sears Tower, was it? That was probably not the Sears Tower, but yeah, there was a tower that had that they had estimated the load winds on the different sides, but then there was also the cornering winds, and a couple of variations of the story. One variation is that they hadn't calculated the corner winds, and that was where the problem was. But that's from the people involved. That wasn't the actual story. The actual story was it was the contractors. Instead of using the recommended number of bolts, they they reduced that when they did the calculations themselves. So maybe it was that they did the calculations with just the side winds and not the cornering winds, and said, "Oh, this is overkill. We don't need that many bolts. Let's save some money." But yeah, I think in that one, the damper is what saved it until they could get in there and put the proper number of bolts in.
Yeah, physics is
Yeah.
always nice.
Yes. Yes. Do your math. Show your work.
Good, Michael. See you next week.
Yes. See you next week.
Okay, I start reading about UIs.
Excellent. Sounds good.
Okay,
All right.
see you.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.